Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. And we are going to go ahead and jump right in. And so with that, you ready, Johnny? Here we go. Okay. So welcome, everybody. Just want to say how glad we are that you're here. This is our very first episode of our new show, Deservingly You.
It's not just a discussion, it's a doorway, a place to reclaim your voice, your worth, and your next chapter. So thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it.
Yeah. We created this space for those of you who have walked through fire, that leaving those high control systems, surviving trauma, or realizing that who you were told to be was never the whole story.
We know that because we've lived it too. I'm John and this is Shannon, and we're both certified high performance transformational resilience coaches.
And this show and today's conversation is about what keeps people stuck and also what finally sets them free. So before we get started, put in the chat where you guys are dialing in from.
So our quest today is to ask, what does it actually take to thrive after, your world turns upside down? And many of us, here know what it's like to walk away from something that once defined us, a religion, a role, a relationship. This isn't just about surviving that chapter. It's about reclaiming who we are and who we're becoming.
So here's what we're going to do today. We're going to start by looking at some of the reasons that people feel stuck. And we're going to do this without judgment, because when we name it, that's the first step of finding our way through it. And then what we're going to do is we're actually going to shift into the science of thriving and show what the research actually tells us about what helps people move forward, not just for the moment, but in a way that actually lasts. So from here, after that, we're going to share a little bit more about our personal stories and what our personal turning points were, so that we can show you that healing doesn't just happen in theory, it happens in real life. After that, we're going to explore the 6 keys of empowerment, and these are the same tools and principles that helped us to stop surviving and start actually living again. And then we're going to give you some space to begin designing your own next chapter and have it aligned to who you truly are. And then finally, if you're feeling called to take that next step, we're going to offer you an invitation to connect with us even more personally.
Thank you, Shannon. Beneath all the survival strategies, what we really want is simple, isn't it? To feel safe, to feel seen, to feel like ourselves, not who we were told to be, but who we actually are. And guess what? You don't have to earn that. You already deserve it. But let's be honest, getting stuck is easy, isn't it? And when the world you left was built to trap you in fear or guilt, we've both been there. And today we're going to talk about 3 of the biggest blocks: fear, fatigue, and frustration, and how to begin moving through them with grace. Before we go any further, let's do a quick check-in. Which one of these 3 shows up most for you lately? Go ahead and type it in the chat if you can. Fear, fatigue, or frustration. Or just, you could type a number, 1, 2, or 3, whatever resonates with you.
Yeah, you're right, Leonard. Trauma is definitely a real thing.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks, Leonard.
For that engagement. Yeah. You're not alone in that, that's for sure. And behind all those feelings is something really important, what we're yearning for underneath the surface. For a lot of us, that's clarity, calm, and a sense of true self, a true sense of self. And that's exactly what we're going to move toward today.
So, like John said, the first obstacle is fear. And it doesn't always show up as panic. Sometimes it's a really quiet voice that says, don't speak up. When you've been trained to equate obedience with safety, anything that is new often feels dangerous. But here's one of the things that we've learned and that we know is that fear is data and it's not a directive. We can actually listen to it without being led by it.
Thank you, Shannon. Next is fatigue, and this one's real and it's deep. It's not just about needing rest, it's about what chronic emotional suppression does to a person. Almost being, always being the strong one, the quiet one, the responsible one. Fatigue means you've carried too much for too long, and healing means it's time to set some of it down.
Now, finally, we've got frustration. And this one can get really loud sometimes. It's that inner scream, why can't I just move on? But frustration often shows up right before there's a breakthrough. And it might be that moment where your soul is ready, but your story is still dragging the chains behind. And we're going to talk about how to work with that instead of against it. So, how do people go from surviving to truly flourishing? And how did they learn to overcome these obstacles and cultivate the right strategies so that they could have an enriching and harmonized life and even careers? And that's what today's all about. We're going to be blending those real world research with the raw truths of our own journey, because we believe that you're not broken, that you're becoming. Now, first, though, we're going to cover some other things.
Thank you, Shannon. But just a few things. Please have a journal ready if you can. And we're going to go over a lot of information, so you may want to jot some of it down for you, whatever resonates. And remember, this is a judgment-free space, and obviously, you don't have to believe everything that we say that you hear here tonight. But we just want to invite you to stay open and be curious. We'll have a Q&A at the end where everyone, if they or anyone that wants to, can come on screen and ask a question. You'll be welcome to do that. And also feel free to post any questions in the chat, and we'll try to collect them and answer them later. But we'll do our best and be ready to be interactive in the chat. We certainly appreciate any engagement and interest. So let's talk about skepticism and who this won't help first. So go ahead, Shannon.
So skepticism is natural, and honestly, it's healthy. So throughout our time together this evening, we want to invite you to gently ask yourself, is this true for me? Is it relevant to my life right now? What might shift if I gave this idea real focus? How could this change not just me, but also those that I care about? Once again, skepticism is natural, and you've been burned before. We get that. So definitely, we invite you to bring your curiosity. And while curiosity is more than enough, there are some that this process isn't going to reach. You have to be ready for it. The process isn't going to work for somebody that is still fully walled off from healing. We know that place. We've been there. That being caught between I want more and I'm afraid to try. So if that's where you are, no shame. Don't bring on any shame. But if you do decide to work, it actually, when it starts moving, the moment that you do. So you don't have to be fearless, just willing to give it a try. And if you're open to it, feel free to drop a word in the chat that captures how are you arriving to this meeting tonight? Are you curious? Are you unsure? Are you ready? Are you exhausted? Anybody?
So let's bring it back. Our quest today is simple, but powerful. How do individuals thrive after life's challenges? And what do they do differently? So we're going to explore that answer together, not just from theory, but from actual research results and real life experience. Let's start naming what doesn't work.
So many of us were taught through the years that if we just try harder and to be more grateful and to grind more. But the truth in that is that those strategies sound really good, but they don't heal trauma. And the other thing is that they don't last. We don't need more hustle, and we actually need those practices that are going to help healing and strategies that are going to last, as well as support systems that are going to lead to real alignment.
Well, let's talk about stepping into a new chapter and what that looks like and what it really means, for the individual. It's different for everyone, but it's not just about where you're going. It's about what you're not bringing with you along your journey. No more burnout, no more compromise, no more trying to be who they needed you to be or thought you should be. This next chapter, it's about peace. It's about choosing what's yours, honoring your truth, and finally writing a story that aligns with who you actually are.
Okay, so that was a lot of stuckness. And so this next part that we're going to be covering isn't about theory. It is actually about research. We're going to be sharing some findings that were published in 2017 from a study that was done by the High Performance Institute. Now, these guys collaborated with the UC of Santa Barbara as well as the University of Pennsylvania, and they captured the essence of what drives sustained success. The findings offer a roadmap for anybody that is aspiring to elevate their lives. And so we want to show you what they did and how this works. And what got really exciting was these aren't just stories that we're sharing. This is drawn from real data and from real lives and real transformation. Now, this global study asks some really powerful questions. What helps people to grow and to keep growing? And why do some people stay stuck while others are able to find peace? What habits and support systems actually work? Now, these aren't just research questions either. They're also personal questions that can sit right beneath the surface and when you're trying to find your way forward. So take a moment just for yourself, and I'm going to ask you which one of these hits home for you right now. Now, you don't need to type it in the chat. Just notice which one is pulling at something in you, because these aren't questions with fast answers. But when we can name the right one, that's when clarity starts beginning.
Thank you, Shannon. Well, this is one of the biggest studies ever done on personal development and thriving. Over 1 million assessments, thousands of interviews and coaching sessions. It captured experiences from people all over the world. And why bring this in? Because you deserve to know that healing is not random. Okay? It follows patterns that we all can learn from.
So after they collected all of that data, the interviews, the surveys, the lived experiences, they identified over 100 factors. And the question became, which one of these actually matter the most when it comes to lasting growth? And they looked for practices that were deliverable, observable, malleable, trainable, and effective across all domains. And out of that, there were 6 practices that stood out. And those became the foundation for what we're about to go into next.
So these practices, often referred to as top growth practices, are essential in one's personal journey. They involve a continuous process for seeking clarity and self-awareness and tapping into a deep reason for action. And it's about cultivating the energy and vitality needed to pursue their lives and pursue and purpose and strength. They discovered the the importance of elevating personal standards. It's about nurturing a strong sense of drive and understanding the why behind it. In other words, making the pursuit of excellence an inherent need. And now in their social and professional lives, these individuals demonstrated some remarkable productivity in areas that deeply mattered to them as individuals. They built meaningful connections, influenced and inspired those all around them, and consistently demonstrated courage in the face of challenges.
And then the study got even more powerful because they didn't just stop at the habits and the outcomes. They actually asked what was happening inside of people who thrive. Now, they looked at beyond the surface and into that inner work and how people think, how they regulate emotion, how they return to their values when things get hard. And then what they found confirmed what both John and I have seen in our coaching, as well as what we've lived in our own healing, that thriving isn't about pushing harder. It's not about doing more. It's actually about coming into alignment with yourself, your energy, your body, your time, and your truth. And it's also not about perfection. It is about presence. And this work is tender as well as transformational. And you're worthy of both.
I also asked a really important question. What does it feel like to thrive? Because thriving isn't just something that we achieve. It's something we experience, in our bodies and in our lives. You'll notice purpose feels embodied, not forced. Resilience carries joy, not just survival. And confidence grows from within, not from being right all the time. And that's the life that we want to help you step into, one that's yours fully and freely. So which of these three, engaged purpose, joyful resilience, or empowered confidence, do you most want to feel more of in your life right now?
So let's also clear something up with the research findings. They weren't what most people expected. Thriving doesn't depend on age, on gender, background, or being gifted. And it's not about being from the right background. It's not about your past or your personality type. It's not about being lucky or perfect. It's something that's accessible to everybody if you're willing to show up for it. And it's about embracing your journey with authenticity and learning from every experience and growing continuously in alignment with your deepest values. It's a process that invites everybody, regardless of their perceived limitations, to cultivate a life of meaning, health, and joy. Now, the data showed that thriving is built through intentional choices, emotional resilience, and alignment with what truly matters to you. And that's something that anybody can cultivate, regardless of where you've been. You just have to have the curiosity and the willingness to engage with your life with courage, honesty, and intention.
Now, this part, it always lands for me because we're still observing the people who are thriving, and the truth is they're not focused on being the strongest or the smartest. See, they're not obsessing over strengths. They're asking the important questions. What can I give? Who can I support? And what kind of impact can I make with who I am right now? What kind of impact can you make right now? Thriving isn't about being perfect. It's about being present, engaged, and willing to contribute. And that kind of growth, it's available to anyone who's ready to participate in their own life.
So now the question becomes, how do you begin? And how do you build the habits, the clarity, and the energy to live with presence, purpose, and peace? Because this isn't all about hype, it's about how. And not just how to feel better for a moment, but how do you create that sustainable momentum for the long term? Now, the second half of our conversation this evening is where we're going to show you those 6 empowerment keys that actually have helped people to live that next chapter. And that's from the inside out.
We're coming into the second part of our, like Shannon said, we're coming into the second part of our discussion tonight. We've seen the research, you felt the truth of it, and now we want to show you how it connects to real life. Before we dive into the 6 empowerment keys, we want to take a moment to share a little of our own journeys, because none of this is hypothetical for us. We've lived it. This isn't theory. It's our experience. Let's walk you through where we come from and why this work matters so deeply to us.
So people are often really surprised when I say this, but the cancer journey was one of the happiest times of my life. Of course, not at first. I started out in a fog of confusion, fear, and deep grief, but it became one of the most powerful and transformative times of my life. I'd always been seen as a successful, put together woman, the strong one, the one who always kept everything together. And then suddenly I was standing at the edge of something that I couldn't control. My fear actually wasn't of dying, though. It was about letting anybody else down. One of the first things that my doctor did was point to my feet and say, "Your feet have brought you exactly where you are standing today. There were choices that you have made and some that you didn't that actually created the perfect storm and brought you to where you are today. You have to take responsibility for where you're standing." Now, that moment began a journey for me. It was a season of deep, messy, beautiful undoing. Lots of tears, confusion, lots of writing, and physical and emotional detoxing. And I began to learn how to trust my inner compass and to let go. He also gave me this metaphor exercise, and that was to examine every rock in my backyard and decide which ones needed to stay and which ones I needed to move to the side, and then which ones got to be tossed over the fence. So I looked at everything in my life, the roles, the expectations, and even the people that I loved. And what this did, this journey helped me prepare for leaving the high control group. Through coaching, therapy, mindfulness, movement, and journaling, I was able to heal. But the most important tool that I found through this was actually curiosity. And I stopped judging my guilt and started asking where it came from. I also embodied 2 truths. It came down to 2 words, deserving and fear. Deserving meant become who you are. And fear was the gate between surviving and becoming. And that's a sacred space because it means something new is coming that is yours. I saw that fear often shows up right before you claim your voice because your nervous system actually thinks that silence is safety. So what I ended up doing is that I learned to take my fear to tea and let it speak. And now I approach guilt and shame with curiosity instead of judgment. And I also know that guilt is a faulty conditioned response that has no grounds in reality and no useful purpose for me. That season prepared me for something I didn't know yet, that leaving the high control world that didn't hold space for my voice. And now I'm not silent. I speak, I teach, and I hold the mic not to be seen, but to help others see themselves. And I trust my compass now, and I live by my core values, not fear. And I have felt even more whole now. I'm here to remind you that you can trust your compass and you do deserve to thrive. Johnny?
For me, there was a time in my life when I didn't believe I deserved to have any peace. Addiction had its grip on me for over 30 years. And I convinced myself I didn't deserve to be in my kids' life and that they were better off without me. And that belief, that lie, it shaped years of destruction. I was a criminal for some time. It ended up in homelessness, a few years in prison. And then in 2008, I found myself sitting in a solitary confinement, a 60 square foot cell for over 8 months, cold, silent, alone. And what shocked the review board was after, initially, after a few weeks, they wanted to let me back out. And I requested, to remain there because I only had that time left. I had a release date. And so, but I did that not to escape others, but to escape the chaos that I had come to see as normal. It was getting familiar and comfortable. And that cell became the beginning of liberation, and I didn't even know it at the time. But you might think that kind of isolation would destroy a person. And at first it almost did. But it also gave me space to breathe, to reflect, a lot of time to think. And that's when I realized I had spent years carrying guilt, shame, resentment, hate for myself, as well as other people. And like bricks in a backpack, I didn't even know, it was on my back weighing me down for all those years. So I started letting those things go one at a time. I got sober after getting out. I reconnected with my kids, and I began to do deep personal work, development work. I started building the tools that I needed, that I didn't have growing up. Tools that would later save my life in ways I couldn't yet imagine. Because in 2023, close to 2 years now, our son Tomas, who had battled addiction himself, had finally hit a point where he looked like he was turning his life around. And then he was murdered by his daughter's mother. And that shattered us, just totally from left field. And, while Thomas wasn't in the cult, that kind of pain gave us a glimpse into what it would eventually feel like to leave it. Because that grief of knowing I would never see my son again on this earth, it cracked something wide open in me. Okay. By then I had done enough work, deep personal work, to stay sober, to feel it, to walk through it, to process it authentically without reacting, from impulse and emotion. And in that place, the truth about that cult that we were still in finally found us. And we weren't looking to leave at that time because we were loyal and we still believed it. But what hit us in the face was undeniable truth, the emotional control, the guilt masquerading as love, the superficial relationships, not because people didn't care, but because they're under some sort of spell. Walking away from the cult wasn't just a rejection of rules. It was the beginning of reclaiming our voices, our values and our lives. That grief, it still lives, within us, but it also became the foundation for the work that we're doing now. So it's found purpose. I became a certified transformational resilience coach because I knew there were others still carrying unspoken stories like mine. So I walk beside men and women who are standing where I once stood, unsure of that healing is even possible. And I remind them, you don't have to go back. You get to go forward, right? Today I live with clarity, purpose, and peace. And I want you to know I didn't just get back up. I learned to stand differently. So enough about us. Let's get back to the question of how. How do you even start? How do you build the habits, clarity, and energy? How do you live with presence, purpose, and peace for the long term, ongoing? Now, we've shared our stories to show you that it's possible. And now we want to walk with you into the key ways that make it real.
So, like John said, that's a glimpse into what has brought us here and why we care so deeply about this work. It's not about our story, it's about what's possible for you. So, back to our agenda, this is where we start getting practical. These are the tools and strategies that helped us to move from just surviving to actually thriving. Now, we call them the 6 keys of empowerment. They're not just theory, they're rooted in real research and lived experience and the kind of coaching that actually transforms lives. So let's walk through what that looks like and the 6 core areas that create that foundation for lasting clarity, peace, and purpose.
Thank you, Shannon. So let's get back to our original quest, the one that's been guiding the whole conversation. What does it really take to thrive after life, turns upside down? For a long time, we were told to just work harder, stay positive, be grateful, push through. And honestly, sometimes those things helped, as reminders, but they weren't enough, were they? Thriving people who actually move forward with peace and purpose, do something different. They seek support. They ask the important questions, and they focus their energy on 6 core areas of life that make everything else lighter, clearer, and more sustainable. We call them the empowerment keys, and they're the foundation of what comes next. All right, here's the bigger picture. These are the 6 empowerment keys that we mentioned earlier. This is the roadmap that we kept coming back to again and again on our own journey, and that's what we now guide others through, no matter where they're coming from or starting from. First one here is psychology, okay? Because how you think shapes who you become. And then physiology, because reclaiming your energy becomes your momentum, right? And productivity, because where your focus goes, your future flows into. And people, because how you connect shapes your sense of peace. And presence, because how you engage defines how life feels. And finally, purpose, because how you reclaim your path is how you reclaim yourself, isn't it? So we'll explore each of these one at a time. But right now, just take a moment and notice which one of these already feels strong for you. Okay, and which one might need a little more love right now. So let's start with the foundation of psychology.
So that first key is one of the most important. And like John said, it's psychology. Now, this isn't just mindset, but it's the deeper story that you're telling yourself every single day. I want to ask you something. Are you living in alignment with your truth, or are you just surviving the next day? Because when our thoughts get cluttered with fear and pressure or old narratives, we can start drifting from who we really are. And this sometimes isn't very loud. Sometimes it's subtle, just like a disconnection from joy. So I want to invite you into a quick reflection that we use with our clients. I want to ask you, what are 3 words that describe the version of you that feels the most real the most grounded, and the most alive. And if you feel like it, drop them in the chat or write them in your journal and take a minute for it. Any ideas of words? We'd love to see them in the chat. Stubborn. I love it.
Are stubborn?
Okay, so check in with yourself. Are you living those words, not perfectly, but consistently enough that your mind, your choices, and your energy match the person that you're becoming? That's what mindset work is. It's not about that perfect thinking. It's about choosing thoughts that reflect your truth and your future.
Thank you, Shannon. Well, let's now move into our second empowerment key, physiology. This is about your energy, and not just physical energy, your mental and emotional energy as well. And here's what I know from personal experience. You can have the best intentions, the strongest mindset, but if your body is worn down, if you're depleted, it's hard to stay in forward motion, isn't it? So I want to invite a quick check-in with yourself. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your current physical energy, mental energy, and emotional energy? Give each one it's a score of its own. 1 being totally drained and 10 being vibrant and energized. Thank you, Ruby. Appreciate that. You can drop it in the chat or just write it in your, write it down for yourself. Or thank you, Leonard. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Melody.
Yes, Melody. That's awesome. I hope to be there one day.
Paralyzed by life. That's understandable. That is definitely understandable.
Thank you, JG, for the honesty. Now we can look at that list on the left side of the slide. What's one area here needs a little more love right now? Sleep, movement, hydration, passion. Oh, thank you, Ruby. Appreciate it. Go ahead and share it in the chat if you feel comfortable. But the point here isn't guilt; it's awareness. Because your energy is your power. When you support your body, you support every other part of your life. Shannon?
So the next empowerment key is about productivity. And this is not the kind that most of us were taught. It's not about pushing harder, not squeezing more into an already overloaded schedule, not trying to prove ourselves and prove our worth by how exhausted we are. This is about clarity and aligned action. And it's making sure that the things that you're spending time on and the energy is actually moving you toward the life that you want. Because productivity without direction just becomes performance. And we saw that. We've seen that in our past. But productivity with clarity, that's where your freedom can begin. So here's what I'd love for you to do. Take a look at the orange circle that's on the slide. What's one personal goal that you want to focus on over the next month? Go ahead and drop it in the chat. It could be big, it can be small. Maybe it's about rest, creative project that you might have, or finally setting a boundary, or you may be starting something totally new. Any goals?
Say no. Love that.
Oh, I love that. Yes.
That's a big one. Thank you, Rebecca.
More organized. Okay.
Love it.
That's beautiful, Leonard.
When you put yourself first, everyone that you around you will benefit from that. Love that.
Yeah, that Sunday school one, that's cool. I could hear that when we were talking about it earlier, Ruby. I could hear just that love in your heart for that.
Thank you, JD.
Too much paper. I love it. Yep. I'm right there with you. Definitely with too much paper. So as you think about that goal, I want you to ask yourself, are my daily choices, my energy, my time actually supporting that? And if the answer is no, there's no shame. That's exactly what this space is for, is to reset and to realign. And remember that real productivity isn't about doing more. It's about doing what matters on purpose with purpose.
Thank you, Shannon. So the next empowerment key is people. And I'll be honest, this one can be the most beautiful and the most challenging, can't it? So when you've come out of environments that are, where connection was conditional, where boundaries were blurred, or where trust was broken, relationships can feel complicated, can't they? But here's what we've seen time and time again in our work is that real healing doesn't happen in isolation. And when you know that, you're more apt to reach out. We don't need a million people, just a few, the right ones, the right few. And we need to be in the right relationships with ourselves first. So here's what I want to invite you to do. Grab your journal or a piece of paper. Thank you. And draw a big circle along with me. Here we go. Big circle. Or an egg shape, whatever you got there. Inside that circle, write the names or roles of the people who energize you, support your growth and make you feel like that you can fully be yourself. Feel free to maybe drop one in the chat if you feel comfortable with that. Appreciate the engagement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's understandable, Ruby. Yep. And that's why it is really important to, like, this little exercise that John is having you do about noticing the type of people who energize you, that can help you to get more comfortable when you do start reaching out and you do start going out more.
Thank you, Shannon. Now, outside the circle, right? Write the names or types of relationships that drain you, that pull your energy and make you shrink back, and avoid. So we can, take our time with this. It's not about blame, it's about awareness. Once we become aware, it's easier to see things as they are and to move forward. And as you finish, just ask yourself, what's one relationship in your life that you could use healing with, stronger boundaries, okay, or simply just more presence right now? This could be a partner, a parent, a friend, anyone, or even your relationship with yourself. That's key, because this exercise isn't just about the people out there, right? It's also about the relationship in here with ourselves. So when you're grounded in self-respect, the way you show up with others changes as well. And you get to choose who gets access to your energy and who does not. Thank you, Shannon.
So the next empowerment key is the one that is one of the most transformative, and that's presence. Because how you engage with this exact moment defines how life feels. And for a lot of us, presence used to be a performance, right? We were trained to smile and we were trained to show up a certain way, to suppress what we were actually feeling just to get through that moment. And so reclaiming presence, it's not just about mindfulness, it's actually about embodiment. And it's about noticing what's really happening inside you without judgment again. And when life is overwhelming, it's really, really easy for us to lose touch with what matters. We might go into autopilot, we go numb, we manage life instead of experiencing it. So let's slow down again. And if you can grab your journal or a piece of paper, if you could write down this question: what moment in my life right now deserves more of my presence? And I'll say that again. What moment in my life right now deserves more of my presence? Now, this could be a relationship, it could be a decision, it could be your mornings, your healing. Just take a moment to reflect. What part of your life is quietly asking you to show up more fully? And now underneath that, write this second question. What would life feel like if I did show up fully? Let that one move through you and let it be real. It doesn't have to be perfect. You're not writing for perfection, you're writing for truth. So feel free if you want to share anything in the chat, because this is what presence actually is. It's bringing your full self to the moment that matters. And this is not to perform and it's not to please, it's to live. And you deserve to live a life that you can actually feel.
Thank you, Shannon. Now, this final empowerment key is purpose. And this one, it hits deep. It truly does, because when you've lived under control or chaos or chronic survival, purpose can start to feel like pressure, like something that you owe the world or the organization instead of something that belongs to you. But real purpose, it's not about performance. It's about freedom. And it's about choosing a path that's yours, not one that you were told to follow, not one built on guilt or fear or living by someone else's expectations. So let's bring it home with this question. Look at that orange circle in the slide there, if you would. What path would I follow if I trusted myself? If I really trusted myself? Take a breath, right? Just let it sink in for a moment. Then please write it in your journal or share a word or phrase in the chat that rises when you sit with it, when it hits you. Truly appreciate it. Thank you, Ruby. Love that. So now this isn't about having the full plan figured out. It's about listening to that part of you that's still alive. It's still dreaming, still whispering, there's more, right? So that's what purpose feels like. It's not about what you produce, it's about who you're becoming and why it matters. And I promise you, that voice inside you, it's worth listening to and trusting. Shannon?
So take a breath with me. you've made it through all 6 of the empowerment keys. And if you're feeling a little bit more grounded or a little more clear, that's not an accident. And so if we look at our agenda again, we've explored why people stay stuck, what science tells us about growth, and the 6 core areas that help you actually to move forward. And now this is where we're at, is designing your next chapter. And this is where everything that you've just uncovered starts to take shape. This is all the things, all of the notes that you've been taking, all of the things that you put in the chat. Those are not to-do lists. It is about a vision, a rhythm, and a way of being that actually feels like you. You didn't come this far just to analyze what was wrong. You came here to start building what's next. So let's take everything that you've just reflected on, those words and those goals, that deeper truth, and start putting it into a form that supports your becoming. And like I said, this is where it all comes together in designing your next chapter. And this is not about pressure. It's not about panic. This is from the version of you that's actually rising. Let's make this practical and powerful right here and right now. So I want you to take a look at the prompts on the slide and just notice what stands out to you. What's calling you right now? What's a small shift that you can try? What energy do you want to bring? And what kind of support would help you to follow through? And here's what I'd like you to share in the chat if you're willing. What's one small shift that you're ready to try this week? And if by chance a power word comes to mind, something that captures that energy that you want to bring, drop that into. Now, this is how new chapters begin, not with pressure to have it all figured out, but with one aligned decision and one small shift and one clear intention. You don't have to have the whole map and that whole path mapped out. You just have to listen to what's rising and then take that next honest step.
Now just take a moment and just breathe that in. And we realized that this was a ton of information in a very short time. And thank you for walking through this journey with us, this evening. From understanding why we stay stuck, to exploring the science of thriving, to hearing our turning points, to moving through 6 empowerment keys and beginning to design your next chapter. This is the moment where we honor how far you've come and to invite you to consider what's possible next. So before we close, we just want to offer you our sincere thanks and a space to keep going. You're not behind, you're not broken, you're becoming. And you don't have to do it alone.
So once again, like John said, we just want to pause right here. And we want to thank you for being here. Not just physically, not just watching, but emotionally, intentionally. You showed up and you reflected. You listened to the deeper parts of yourself, and that is brave. It's also rare, and it's worth honoring. So wherever you are in your journey, whether you're just beginning, rebuilding, or stepping into something new, please hear this. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are becoming. And you don't have to do it alone. And we are so honored tonight that you spent this time with us. So if by chance something stirred in you today, if a part of you whispered that this mattered, and we would like to meet you in what's next. Now, you're invited to a private, no-cost, 60-minute strategy session with either of us. And this isn't a sales pitch. This is not. It's not a funnel. It is a focused, honest conversation about what is real and what is next for you. We can explore where you are, what's been keeping you stuck, and how to move forward in a way that's aligned with your values, your pace, and your truth. And if we're the right fit for you to walk a little further, great, beautiful. And if not, you're still going to leave that call with more clarity than you came in with. So you can scan the QR code, or you can go to luminousconnections.com, free strategy session to schedule. Now, we created this because healing gets lighter when it's shared, and your next chapter deserves support that sees all of you.
And if this session resonated, we'd love to keep walking with you. And in our next episode of Deservingly You, we'll be diving into something that we call the ZAPS framework. It's all about what happens when your mind makes it all about you. Those moments where you personalize everything. And even in hard moments, so you can stay connected to the real you, even in hard moments, So we'll talk about how to interrupt those patterns with curiosity, compassion, and clarity. So mark your calendar on June 16th. Invite a friend and bring your journal. Don't forget your pen, because healing doesn't have to be heavy. And growth gets lighter when we do it together. Thank you again for being here.
So we've got a few minutes here. And we know that we dumped a lot of information on you, and we want to honor your time and your energy. But if anybody would like to join us on the screen, feel free to click the button and we can bring you up one at a time. Or if you'd rather stay in the chat, that's fine too. Feel free to drop your question or reflection there. And if you don't have a question, we'd still love to hear what's one thing that you're walking away with today. Maybe it's a word, a shift, or a realization, something that stood out or landed to you. Now, this space is about more than information. It's about integration. And sometimes when we say it out loud or sharing it in a space like this is what makes it real. So whether you're asking, reflecting, or just sitting with what's rising, thank you for being here and for being open and for being you. So do we have anybody that has any questions or would like to come on and
while you're working up the courage to do that, I could just say, deserving isn't something that you have to earn. It's something that you begin to remember and becoming who you are, and that's the most powerful thing you can do.
It looks like we've got somebody.
Fallen Ashes, hi.
Yeah, I just want to say, I like the part where you guys mentioned that I'm not broken and that I'm becoming.
Do you believe that?
I mean, in a physical sense, I'm partially broken, but jokes aside, I always saw myself as like, oh, I have a disability. I'm broken. I'm not good enough. Growing up, it's like, I'm just this one different person. I felt like the witch from Wicked with the green skin, and she couldn't really be herself. Just this weird, different oddball. But, I'm becoming this person that nobody else is, and that's me. And it's who I am. And it's like, now that I'm an adult and I can express myself without feeling like I'm going to be grounded for it, it feels good to say that this is a part of me. And yeah, I've cried over it, but I've realized that actually it's made me who I am, and I love myself for it. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be something that another person wants, because I've lived with it my whole life and I've accepted it.
Acceptance is key. Yes.
Yeah. So what was did you pick something that you're going to work on this week?
Yeah, for me, it's gonna be the gym because last week I missed it. So I'm
The gym.
trying to stay consistent with that, and I'm now 3 days in. I
Awesome.
did 2 days last week, so this week I'm doing 3 days.
Very
That's
good.
awesome. So
Yeah.
do you like doing like aerobics, or do you like doing like weightlifting combo?
I do different body parts, like the lower body is for Monday and Wednesdays is the middle body, upper body's Fridays. And I try to run at least every day. I try to get my heart racing, okay? Because like I get anxiety, and like the gym helps me feel less anxious after I get done working out.
Yeah. Yep. That definitely happens. Hi, Leonard. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, how is everybody this evening?
Good.
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 Thank you for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
I just want to say that that we might be damaged people, but we're not broken people. You know, because I can think of a certain situation in my life that happened, and I just thought that I was never going to get over it. But you know, as can I say time? Well, my faith and time, I have, you know, I'm coping and I'm dealing with it. You know, it didn't happen overnight, but you know, thank God, you know, I'm coming to terms with it.
Yeah.
I would agree with you, Leonard, on not being broken. Although some people they need to grow into that and become aware of that themselves. The people that believe that, that drives them into addiction and alcoholism, suicide,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
now that I've come now that I'm at where I'm at now today, I was very damaged, not broken. Yes,
Yeah.
although I believed I was at one point.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody made a comment in the chat about broken vases. And so our company is called Luminous Connections. And what Luminous Connections stands for, and this is kind of an aha that I had going through the cancer journey. It comes from the idea of kintsugi. And so kintsugi is the Japanese art form of taking broken pottery and gluing it back together with that golden adhesive. And the golden, and what you have in the end is actually more beautiful and stronger than what you had in the beginning. And so that's what we try and bring to to help people to see that those broken pieces, that they're lessons that you can take from your life. And actually, when you glue it together with that self-love and understanding and stuff, you have something stronger and more beautiful in the end.
Yes. So
That's
you,
true.
you can take all that trauma as learning experience and find purpose and meaning behind it. And obviously that looks definitely for everyone, but that was
Right.
crucial. That was crucial for me. Yeah. In order to drop resentment, hate, bitterness, regret, shame, all that just fell away when I realized, hey, this has made me who I am today, and I'm able to help others because of it. And it's brought so much awareness and clarity to my mind that it gives it meaning. Yeah. And I'm stronger for it.
Yeah. So Leonard, did you have any questions?
Well, for starters, I just want to say to John, I want to just sincerely apologize on the loss of your son. You know, because no parent, I don't care age, race, creed, or color, no parent should have to ever bury their child. No parent. And I just want to say that. Well, I just want to ask a question. How did you all personally, Shannon, John, or Fallon, with your personal dealings, how did you all get through it?
Well,
The first thing that I had to learn was, like I said in a little bit in my story, was learn deserving.
Mm-hmm.
And that meant at one point during the cancer journey, I actually had an open wound that wouldn't close. And it had been open for weeks. And my doctor sat me down and he's like, we're missing something. And he said, at one point, he said, you realize that you deserve help. And it didn't stick with me. And I didn't grasp it. I didn't really grasp what it was. And so the next day we actually had another appointment, and he said, your demeanor completely changed when I asked you that. And so when he said, you believe that you deserve to be sick, you believe that you deserve to have cancer. And I felt something shift inside of me. I'd been doing a lot of personal work, a lot of the personal development work, figuring out like when I said the rocks in the backyard, I'd been doing a lot of that kind of stuff. And so when it clicked in my brain that I deserved help, and that I deserved to love, and I had to work on really loving me. That was the biggest key, was learning how to love me. And then everything started to fall into place. And then too, as we went through our journey, and by the time that we woke up from the watchtower, because of all of the work that we had done, with our own personal development, that helped us to get through leaving the organization.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
thank you, Shannon. And well, for me, how I got through the death of my son is when I initially got that phone call. What I initially recognized as a reaction was just extreme grief and sorrow, and but then later on, reflecting, I realized that was just an authentic response. Okay, because a reaction would have been anger, hatred, bitterness, some need for revenge. None of that was present in me because of the work that I did before that.
Mm-hmm.
So where my mind goes for anything, and without going down a rabbit hole here, is just to find something to be grateful for. And in that first 60 to 90 minutes, I was struggling because my mind was racing, and I could find nothing. And I didn't even really realize what was happening, but in hindsight, that's what I recognized. And when I got my daughter on the phone, 90 minutes after that initial phone call, who I hadn't talked to in 3 years, and she has my 11-year-old granddaughter, that relationship, I had to tell her about her brother. That relationship began to heal. We reconnected.
Mm-hmm.
When I hung the phone up, I thought, well, there's something to be grateful for. And I was immediately, not 100%, but, I was able to actually get to an AA meeting and share about it, but by noon, just a few hours later.
Mm-hmm.
And that was huge. And I didn't return to alcohol and drugs because of it. So, and also another big piece was weeks later, I saw in myself a huge shift, where I was more compassionate, more loving, more willing to serve, a desire to serve, and just a different level of humanity and compassion. And I just, what it did, the death of my son in a weird way added value to me, and it made me a better person. So that's definitely something to be grateful for. And I recognize that although I'm not grateful for the event itself,
Right.
I'm grateful for the opportunities that it presented to me.
Mm-hmm.
And when you can find, and it's different for everyone's journey is their own, and I didn't come up with this, it's just, but when you're able to find that meaning and purpose in something, it's impossible, I believe, to continue to suffer.
Mm-hmm.
I've known people with similar experiences who can't get out of bed years later because of it. And I believe that this is key, what I just described.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So JG asked a question about how we help clients measure success with the program. So one of the things, JG, when I started, after the cancer journey, I had so many people tell me, you need to write a book. You need to become a coach because, you do all of these types of things. I was coaching before I was a coach even. And so when I came out of that, I wanted to create a course that was adaptable and that would meet the person where they were. Because one of the things that I learned through the cancer journey, I met many other cancer patients through that. And they had, some of them chose chemotherapy, some of them did not. I personally did not have chemotherapy and I did not have radiation. I did end up having surgery. But it was about having your roadmap to your journey, to your path, your life, your future. And that's what I wanted to be able to do, because not being judgmental about, like, if you look at cancer, for example, not being judgmental if somebody chooses to do chemotherapy, because maybe that's what's on their roadmap. So how do you coach people that is so adaptable so that it meets them where they are instead of just being a check the box thing? And I ended up banging my head against the wall because I couldn't figure it out. And then that's when I found, so both John and I are certified under Brendan Burchard, who is the top high performance coach in the world. And I found him and I started as a client and found, I was like, holy wow, because it seemed as if my coach had a camera in my house because she always seemed to know exactly what I needed that week. And so that coaching program that they had met me where I was. So JG, when you talk about how do you measure success? We don't measure success. You, as a client, you get to measure the success because it's your roadmap and it's your journey and you get to figure out these things. We just have the science that John and I shared in our presentation tonight. The coaching that we're certified in uses that as a foundation, and it actually meets you exactly where you're at and you find the answers. Does that make sense, JG? And the shortest time frame, longest and shortest, we're actually going to be rolling out a 6-week group coaching here in July. And then we also do one-on-one coaching. And then also in July, we're going to be doing more of like a subscription type coaching as well. And so it comes all sorts of shapes and sizes that we're going to offer everybody so that you can find the right roadmap for you. Does that make sense?
Another piece of that question that you answered or asked, JG, is that once you become a client, for me personally, I could say for myself, I'm available to you ongoing, through email, text, calls, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So any other questions, any other comments?
Well, me personally, I just want to comment that a few years ago, I decided that I chose to be a victor instead of a victim. Mm-hmm. And with that, as we've said, we have to look inside of ourselves and see what can we do for ourselves that can slow down, get your words out. We have to look inside of ourselves to see what we can do to better ourselves within.
Mm-hmm.
Because self-love is the best love. It comes from within, not without.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed.
You know, and what else I was gonna say?
Hey, Ruby.
Oh gosh, it just slipped out of my mind. It'll come back to me. But anyone else want to comment? I don't want to take up all the time.
Yeah, I
I
just
think
had
we
a
might
quick.
be about out of time.
Yeah.
Is that
Well,
right, Ruby?
Ruby had something that she wanted to say, I think.
Okay.
Oh, yes. Before we wrap it up, just want to say great show. Thank you to Shannon Avery and John. The information was wonderful, so helpful for our community because I was taking notes, the 6 empowerment keys, and I identified way too many things I got to work on. Like I am literally struggling with it in real time. But I wanted to ask you, Shannon and John, because the problem for me and with a lot of people in our community is that our purpose was told to us. It
Mm-hmm.
was given to us. We were born with it already. We didn't have to make those decisions.
Yep.
But now, without that purpose, what is my purpose? So I've always struggled with finding what that is for myself without somebody or something giving me the playbook or the rules or the regulations.
Mm-hmm.
So that's number one. That's hard. But even harder than that is to accept, like John was saying, we're thankful for the event because it made us who we are. But I still struggle with the anger and resentment and bitterness that if those things didn't happen to me, I wouldn't be like this. I wouldn't have this trauma. So it's like, who would I be if it wasn't for that? But at the same time, I'm angry that it already happened to me. Like I can't control that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you have to accept that first to even start the 6 keys.
Sure. You know, for me, you meant what was a true eye opener for me and a spiritual awakening, a psychic change even, was when I realized, and I didn't come up with this myself, I just heard it, and it was this: life didn't happen to me, it happened for me. And that looks different for everyone, you know.
Mhm.
And they have to come to terms with that on their own. But I used to be so angry, like you said, Ruby, resentful, hateful, and just not a nice person. And when I realized, when I first heard that life happens for you and not to you, I didn't just believe it right away, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. Right, and I had to sit with it for some time, and then it went from my head to my heart.
Yeah.
And it
takes. The other thing too is that this isn't a light switch.
Right. No.
It takes work. You have to do the work. Now,
absolutely.
when John, for example, John's like he mentioned, he was an active addict for 30 years. And by the time that he got into the last time that he got into treatment and was able to have it stick, and when he went through and he actually did the work, a lot of we want instant gratification, we want instant fixes. That is not what the way that we coach and the things that we give is not about instant fixes. It's not the putting the salve over the wound. It's about, like, let's clean it out, let's figure it out, let's look at the lessons that we have, that we've gained through all of these. And it took us a while to figure those out. If John would not have done the work that he did prior to Tomas's death, he would have relapsed. He would have relapsed. But because he did the work, he was able to do that. The other thing is when we came out of the organization, if we had not done the work that we have done with the personal development, we wouldn't be here tonight. We would not be able to share the things that we've learned and the things that have worked for us.
All right.
And so it does take time. It also is freaking scary when you're looking at that anger and getting curious about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have to remember when I talked about in my spot where I talked about taking the fear to T, that's kind of what it's like, is taking the step back and letting it speak and hear what it has to say without judgment. And it's by doing that you can peel back those layers and start figuring out what's going on inside. And then you can heal it and let it go. It takes a lot of work, but it is doable. John and I are both standing here, and people have told us over and over, I cannot believe that you guys have been so resilient with everything that you have gone through. Does that make sense?
Yeah, those are great points, because you said in the beginning, like, we have to take like responsibility or accountability. I forgot which word you used,
responsibility.
but take responsibility for that. And I think that was the number one thing that I couldn't do, because I always blamed my mom or my dad or the organization. It was like I was putting blame everywhere else. And even though I felt like that was right, it still wasn't helpful, because I still want to put the blame elsewhere, but I'm not going to get any justice out of that. I'm already out. I'm already shunned. I'm already, outside of that. So it's like you're putting all that anger and blame on people who don't care anymore.
Yeah.
So you're left with that on your chest, and it's heavy, because they won't say sorry. They won't forgive. They don't even think they did anything wrong in the first place. But you're left with the pieces to put together. And I think that's what's hard.
Yeah.
For me, I'm grateful to be on the other side of it now, and not to know the difference. What am I trying to say here? I left when I was about 16. The organization was gone for close to 30 years, but then I know that I'm glad. I used to be very bitter because of that, and where it led me. I thought it was, I blamed them, like you said, and it just didn't serve me. But now I'm actually grateful that happened for me as a young person, because I wasn't completely indoctrinated, completely convinced of anything. Even though I went back, after I was turned 40 years old, I just thought, I still believed that it was the truth, although there's a lot I still didn't buy into. But because of being gone and shunned for so long, I was able to see the other side of it. And once I became grateful for that, all the resentment, anger, and hatred or bitterness toward the organization fell away. But I know it doesn't feel good. I do know that.
And I think too, one of the things like we talked about in the, as one of those key empowerments is that purpose. And like really, really, as you get to know yourself, as you get to know yourself more, that will come out more, so that you can have the life that you want, and you create the life that you want. No worries, Ruby. That is, tears are wonderful. Tears are a release. They are a wash. They're a beautiful release for your body and for your nervous system. So I hope that you have a wonderful, great cry tonight, because you deserve it.
Aha moments.
And I just want to add to that as well. Sometimes we as people, we treat the symptoms and not the root cause of it. Because just like what Shannon was saying, Shannon and Ruby, that we have to take that responsibility first. You know, we just so blinded about the symptoms until we don't accept the root cause of it. Because when you get to the root cause of it, that's when everything starts coming to the forefront. And then it is easier for us to accept our truth and our responsibility for it.
Yeah.
I believe
Yeah.
it's human nature to see what's on the surface in any
Yeah.
situation. And it takes work to see what's underneath the surface. You know,
Yep.
like you said, the core, the root cause. Yeah.
Yep. Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I'll say
Definitely.
that,
I'm sorry.
I guess my last thing to say is I hope that this doesn't come off the wrong way, but like I've imagined that my life could have ended up worse in a sense. Like my parents could still be shunning me, but they decided not to shun me.
Mm,
I mean, not every JW family shuns you.
that's
My
true.
family did shun me at first, but then now recently, like this year, they posted a picture with me on their Facebook, and that felt nice because they're on, they're social people. We've always posted our family photos online, and it felt natural. But ever since I got shunned, it felt unnatural to them because the organization tells them to not talk to me. But now that I expressed to them that, you know, I don't want to feel like you guys are ashamed of your daughter. And that's how I feel. And when I expressed that to them, they expressed how they felt and they expressed their love to me. And that's when they showed their love by, um, going back to what they used to do, like post, our family photos and,
Yeah.
stuff like that. And actually they're putting family photos on the wall. I called my dad today and they're putting family photos on the wall in the house that I used to live in. They're putting more family photos out because for some reason they stopped doing that. Like when I was in that organization, like I don't know, my family, they would take a lot of pictures. They were I have a very photogenic family.
Wow.
And we would have photos in the house. So it's like, why is it all of a sudden you stop putting photos on the wall? I think my family became depressed and like I grew up and then I left this religion and a lot of things happened and I got married and, blah, blah, blah. So now I feel like I'm settled and in a better place for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel very emotional about it because that's all I want is just to be accepted and to be loved for who I am because I'm not doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not hurting anyone.
Right. Right.
I'm right there with you. Yeah. I'm experiencing that right now with my family.
Agreed.
Yeah. Yep. So, so any other questions tonight? And hopefully we can get some help with the other channels too. If there's any questions that we can, if by chance Ruby and the team could help us collect them, that would be awesome.
I have one more question. It's
Okay.
more of a request.
Okay.
Before we go off alive here, can I pray?
Sure.
Yeah. No objection to me.
All right. Can we bow our heads and close our eyes, please? Father, in the name of Jesus, I just thank you for this live that we have had tonight. I just thank you that we have had people to come and express their gratitude and their sincere appreciation and their sincere heart's desire. And Father God, I just ask that Shannon, John, Fallon, and whoever else that is on this live will have their heart's desire within, Father God. And Father God, I just want to pray for Ruby as she has her revelation, Lord. And Father, I just thank you that as we continue to have these lives, Lord, I pray that we will come together and develop, mature, and come together as one happy family, Father. In Jesus' name I do pray. Amen.
Thank you,
Thank
Leonard.
you.
That was
Thank
nice.
you.
Very sweet.
I appreciate that.
Yes,
All
you're
right.
more than welcome.
And
All
you can
right.
reach me through our email there, and anytime.
All right. Thank you so
Well,
much.
anyone else too that's here, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah. So Ruby, can you bring up our last slide again? All right. So we want to thank you all so much for your honesty and your presence and your courage today. And as we close, we want to leave this thought with you. Deserving isn't something that you have to earn. It's something that you begin to remember, and becoming who you are, that is the most powerful thing that you can do. So from our hearts to yours, thank you so much for walking this part of the journey with us.
You have added value to us, and thank you so much. Appreciate it.